The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sharon Dooley, and I think we have an exciting topic today. Why are you still taking backups? As an elderly DBA, that not making backups scares me to death. So we will look forward to hearing what Armando has to say about this. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Hewlett Packard Enterprise. They're the folks who make it possible for us to have a raffle to give gift certificates to the attendees at each of our meetings. We are one of many virtual chapters that cover a wide range of topics, and you're free to join as many as you wish. You simply add the chapter to your past profile, and you'll start getting mailings from them. If you haven't heard about SQL Saturday, it's something you should know about. It's a one-day free training event. They're held all over the world, as you can see here. And they're quality presenters. A lot of people who present at the past summit also present at SQL Saturdays. There's an upcoming business analytics day being held in Chicago. You can find out more about it on SQLpass.org. And you can register for it online as well. We have something new happening, and Microsoft's Technology and Civic Innovation Group is conducting some seminars about civic technology, a new movement of people with technical skills who want to work together toward the public good. And there are going to be two sessions. One of them's tomorrow, and the other is next week. Give you a chance to learn more about this this effort that's going on. In addition to the virtual chapters, there are local chapters, regional chapters. They are generally have a physical presence, and I know the one in my area is in the evening. It meets at 5:30 in the evening, and there's always pizza. If you don't have a local chapter, PASS will help you start one. Simply contact the Community Evangelist, CE at SQLpass.org. PASS is a volunteer organization. Yes, there's paid staff in the headquarters and in IT and all of that, but most of the work is done by individuals who donate their time, and you can volunteer at whatever level works for you. And this is not for the people who are here, but it's for the folks who discover us on YouTube. And I encourage people who find our presentations on YouTube and subscribe to join SQL Pass. It's free, and you'll be able to download supplemental materials as well as just watching the recording. PASS has presence in all of the social media and welcomes everybody's involvement. Now, our presenter today is Armando Lacerda, and he's an independent consultant specializing in large SQL Server database deployment and tuning. He started as a developer back in the 80s, and after his first encounter with IBM, he focused on database technologies, and he worked with Oracle 7 and 8, and then he moved to the other side, starting with SQL Server 6.5. He's certified in all Microsoft SQL Server versions since then, and today he's been working on data warehouse projects and mainframe integration with SQL Server, Power BI, and Azure services. He's also a certified Microsoft trainer and has been for 15 years. And now I'm going to turn this over to Armando and let him do his thing and tell us why we don't need to do backups anymore.
All right, let me share my screen here.
Yeah. You sound good.
Perfect. Can you see my PowerPoint? Can you see my slide deck there?
All right, yes, I can.
Perfect. All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all of you who are following this presentation. Like Sharon mentioned, my name is Armando Lacerda. I included a little picture of me in one of this conference I was at, and the guy stopped me at the walkway there, said, let's take a picture. I said, what? So got my contact information there. And, I made this presentation, this particular presentation, like, the title is like a teaser. I hope I have got your attention with that. And the deal here is what I want to share with you is there are new ways of doing backups and some better ways of doing backups, especially when there is when you're talking about a very large database. So what we're going to take a look at here today is just make sure we understand there are better options to do large backups. I'm teaching a class here in San Francisco. I'm also a certified trainer from Microsoft. And one of the topics we're talking here is backups, of course. And one of my students here, she asked, Armando, what if a backup takes too long and it collides with the schedule of another backup or something like that? And having a database that's too large to fit in a backup schedule is not something very uncommon, at least with among my friends and my clients. So we're gonna start talking about the basics about backup, what's the goal of a backup, and a little bit of a contrast in between backup and high availability. Then we will see actually this is still doing a backup, which is a very backups of very large database with partitions. So we have a demonstration for that too. And then we will start discussing some strategies where we may either not do a backup, completely stop doing backups, or just doing backups using new options we have in SQL Server 2016. So let's go to it. And hopefully all the demonstrations will work. I have rehearsed these things in here. I have done them like twice, and hopefully they will be okay. So here we go. So what's the goal of a backup? Well, it's two-folded. Actually, I forgot to put this one here. It is two-folded. One of them is recover from a catastrophic event. Of course, like here in San Francisco, like in California coast, we have earthquakes here pretty much every day. And if something's really bad happens to one of the buildings where the data center is, and we lost the physical installation there, we have to recover it from backup media some other places, right? That's the idea of a backup. Recover from some catastrophic events, fires, tornadoes that go around and swap things up, and we have to rebuild from scratch on a new hardware and so on. So that's the basic goal of keeping backups and of doing backup strategies. But there's another goal in here that I forgot to type. I always forgot to type this guy here, which is restore up to a point in time. A lot of us, we take backups, and sometimes we have to restore that backup in another server to a point in time, either to recover a table that was damaged and we don't want to recover the whole database, we want to recover just that particular table up to a point in time. And so, we do this, quite frequently. We get the backup restored some other place, and we get the table we need from there, because as we know, we cannot restore just a table from a backup media. But the major goal is actually to recover from catastrophic events. And in our plan for our backup strategy, we always must take in consideration how long it's going to take to restore the backup, right? The time to recover from the catastrophic event, how long it's going to take to restore my database, and also how much data I can support losing, because backups are not continuous operations. They happen from time to time on a schedule. High availability would be continuous operations, but backups are not. So therefore, there is always a chance of losing some data. We know that SQL Server supports tail log backup, so if my catastrophic event left my transaction log intact there in the server, I could try to do the tail log backup and then get my data, almost not losing any data up to the point when the catastrophic event happens. But in any case, I have the transaction log may not be there, and therefore I'll have to plan, how much data I can afford losing if my database goes away. So these are the basics when we're talking about backups. We have to assess that. And in that particular, if you go online and start researching about these two topics, you see some people, some well-renowned consultants and SQL Server professionals. I have seen a couple of articles like my title here for this class, for this session, very provocative. Like there was this one I read the other day. The guy was suggesting to take a transaction log backup every 5 seconds. So, or even less, depending on how much transactions are going into the database and how fast is the target backup device. So can you imagine the chain to restore that backup if you are doing transaction logs every 5 seconds, just because we cannot afford losing much data if in a case of a catastrophic event? So thinking about these situations, we can actually use, and I know of and I have implemented that for some of my clients, a lot of companies who are actually using high availability has an alternative for backups and an alternative to restore my production environment from a catastrophic event. Now, these options I mentioned to you, which we're going to see here, the stretched database and the always-on availability group, they're options. They're not actually designed for backup, but they can help us a lot, either by, I would say, preventing us from doing backups, like in the case of always on, which we'll discuss more in a second, or just doing things in a very different, very creative way. And for some reason, I haven't seen much people talking about the last option we have there, which is the file snapshot up in Azure. But let's take a look. Let's see how that works. Again, when doing the contrast in between backup and high availability, the most contrast thing we have there, the key element that's really different in between them usually is the budget, right? Technically, we can talk about downtime. So high availability is not to have any downtime. When you're doing backups and backup strategies, we are accounting for some downtime to restore the environment. High availability does not support single point of failure, right? You should not have a single point of failure, and automatic switch over. Now, when we get to those topics in there in a bit, we'll see that some of them could be used together with backups. Actually, could avoid us taking backups. We would have no need to do the backups if we can trust the replicated copy, and we have access to the copy when needed to restore the environment. So let's take a look. Let's start with the first one here. Well, for this one here, for very large databases, the last demonstration in this session will show an alternative approach to this one here up in the cloud. But I want to start with a local implementation of it, right? So the case here is, why am I taking a full database backup from time to time from a very large database? Why am I taking a full database backup from a very large database? SQL Server, for a very long time, supports partial backups or backups of files and file groups. Partial backups are kind of a more new feature, which would be taking backups only of the file groups that are read-write. They're not read-only. So, if I create a database there and it's kind of a data, OLTP with some historical data, and I put a historical data on a file group that's read-only, I don't have to take backup of that read-only all the time. But again, my strategy must account to split up my database and file groups and multiple data files. This particular one can save us a lot of time, and I don't have, like I said, I don't have to take a full backup, so I don't have to take the backup of my database all the time, or perhaps ever, right? As long as I have all the pieces being backed up regularly on some schedule according to data changes. An example I like to bring in classroom when I'm going through this is like, when you see Google Earth or Bing Maps, these guys, they have terabytes and exabytes of data in there. And they don't take a full backup of these databases every week, let's say, right? What they do, when they get imagery coming back from the satellites, they update some layers or some, in our case here, file groups in their database. They take a backup of that file group and it lays there. Of course, you have multiple copies of the backup, but it just lays there. So this next demonstration, this first demonstration is exactly about that, is how to do this kind of backups. So here, in my local laptop, I have here a SQL Server 2016 instance going on in here. These are a couple of databases. AdventureWorks, of course, is there. Kind of small here, right? But you can see there. AdventureWorks kind of there. And I have created in here a file structure. I'm going to show here on the script. Let me pop up the script in here. I have here a file structure that I have created for my very large database. So I mapped these folders in here to individual hard drives. You see here on my computer management that I have multiple hard drives in here, right? Each one of them for one of the data files of my database. And I'm going to go ahead and create this database here for us. Whoops, let me highlight the right link in here. Let's create this database. So while it's creating the database, as you can see, I have 3 file groups, and each one of these file groups got 1 data file, and actually 2 data files, right, in each one of them, and they are stored on a particular hard drive. So that will be kind of mimicking what we have on a loom, right? We on a SAN and have multiple volumes in there, multiple looms in there, and we create my database like that. So if I go in here and refresh this, I can see my database is in there. My database in there, and the sorry, the mouse here is not cooperating much. Properties, and we can see those file groups in there. Right, got the file groups created, and there is one file group also apart just for the indexes. Perfect. So let's go ahead and create some tables. I'm creating table 1, table 2, and table 3, each one of them on a particular file group. And so let's go ahead and indexes, right, for each one of them. So let's go ahead and create my tables. There we go. And because my database is empty, I could go ahead in here if I want to and take a full backup just to keep the structure of my database. It's not mandatory. I like to do it when the database, I'm starting the database from scratch. So I have a full backup of the database. Actually, I think I was trying this before. Let me erase this file first here so I don't have too much information there. See, it's full of data in there. So erase this guy. And let's do this full here again, just in case, just to have the complete structure of my database. As I said, not mandatory. So, when my database became available, people start working in the database. So I created here a quick script, right? I made here a quick script to work with the database, and it's just in adding, random data into the database. So let's go ahead and run this guy here. It's not going to take long. It's not that much data. I just created this structure for a very large database, but of course I don't want to spend much time here waiting to create gigabytes and gigabytes of data, right? We don't want to do that. We want to see the other stuff. While it is creating the data, right, while it's populating the table, what I'm going to simulate here is a hard disk failure. So as this data is going in, I'm going to start my backup process, and here is the goal number one of this presentation. So why are you doing full backups of very large database? You shouldn't. You should redesign your database to work with file groups, and then you can schedule your file groups to be backed up on particular moments, distinct moments. For the sake of this presentation, I'm doing each one of the file groups a part of each other 1.5 minutes, right? But of course, in production environment, it would be days, right? Perhaps days or whatever schedule fits your business case. So I'm going to keep this guy here doing the file group backup, and this one here will do the log backup. So let's keep this guy doing the log backup while people are adding data to the database, right? Let's see here. Yeah, let me see. What is this? Full. Oh, the log backup is going on. So let's restart it. It should go okay now. All right, so it's populating, and I'm going to leave this working here for a while, and we come back here to see how to restore just a portion of it when a portion of the database goes down, and making the case, don't do a full backup of very large databases. Do partial backups and partial restores, all right? So we're going to go back to this demo here in a bit, just because it's creating the file in there. The other option we have as an alternative to full backups when we are when we are creating backup strategy for our companies is to use always on availability group, which is not new, right? In SQL Server, it's been around since SQL Server 2012, but it's been very successfully used as the main resource when I have to restore a database when I have to restore a database, or I have to restore an environment from a catastrophic event like I mentioned. So how does availability group work? We have our production database going someplace, right? And there are some prerequisites for this guy. You have to have the cluster service on Windows Server installed and available, although we manage everything from Management Studio, but we get it from here. And we can have multiple copies of this of the database. It's not the instance, right? It's always the database. We have multiple copies of this database someplace else. So this creates the case where my data is going to be live somewhere for read-only access, and if I want to, I can use this particular copy of Always On to do my backup. Like I joked in here, like for peace of mind. They did know I want to have this in a separated media, offline storage someplace, so I want to have it. But in most scenarios, you really don't need it, because if these two computers, they are apart from each other, you know, and of course connected from from network perspective, but they are geographically apart from each other, which they should. Any catastrophic event should not affect both at the same time. So even though I may not have my applications, and a lot of people when they consider this as an option for disaster recovery, they are like, you know, my applications, the applications I run in my SQL database, they are not ready for always on. If I really want to fully use always on as a high availability solution, my applications, they must be able, on the connection string, they have to have some changes in there, and I may have some specifics on the connection string that would require a newer SQL client on the computers, and my applications, I'm not in a position to do this update on the desktops where my applications work, or even on servers, right, in case of a web server where my applications work. So people look into always on, and they're like, no, I'm not going to use this because it requires updates and my applications are not ready for the updates. Still, you can use them, you know, use the groups in there, the copies of your database through for a quick restoration, a quick restore of a disaster, right, to recover from a disaster without using the tape. The only thing you have to consider in here, and if it's the case for your business in your company, is the need for point-in-time restore. If you need to do a point-in-time restore, the always-on will not help you with that, because always-on keeps always the latest information on the copies, right? You cannot go back in time. We do have the timetables now in SQL Server, but they require more space, and they got some overhead on the database as well. So if timetable could do it for you, great. You could do timetable to see what was the data at a point in time, but restoring a database to a point in time with always on would not be possible. Then you really would need the tape. With most cases, what people really require is either a copy from the database or restore to a new server, which is completely possible, right, through always on. So for that, let me double check here my script. My log is complaining about something, but I believe the database is being populated and the backup and restore are happening. I mean, the backup is happening, right? Let me double check here on the reports just to see if I have some data there, so we can follow up with this demonstration later. Let me see here, disk usage. Just double check if, yeah, okay, data is going through. I don't know what's failing now. It's like that, right? When you go to the live demonstration, something always goes sideways, but it's fine. It's just the batch that's breaking when adding data. Populating, yeah, but it's still adding some data there. I'll go back to this in a second. So for this demonstration here, I'm going to go here to a resource that official trainers have from Microsoft, which are the virtual machines we use to teach our classes. Let me log out from this account here. I actually got two accounts. The one I want to use is this one here. Oops. Learn it. Oh, not learn it. Gmail.com. And great. Hotmail.com. Sorry, guys. So, oh man, what happened to my login? All right, so let's go for the other one. Illustrator@learnit.com. And the password in here. So let's go ahead here and get a class, and it's SQL. Let me get the virtual machine here for the always on class 464.20, 464. I'm double checking here. Nope, 465 then. Database solutions, perfect. So let's get this guy here, and always on availability group, perfect. Let me spin up, I forgot to spin up this guy here. You need to complete, or see that you have another lab. Sorry guys, something's going on here that's not allowing me to launch the virtual machine I created for this demonstration. I'm gonna hold it in here and figure out what's going on with my, oh, sorry about that. Let me go back in here. So yeah, so the always on, what I was about to demonstrate there is to have a database and create the group, right, having the database in there, copy it to another instance, and then crash this guy here and get that copy to another server other than the server that has failed. And I think this thing is just not updated because I don't have any virtual machine going on in here. Oh boy. Isn't it cool when this happens? And I know there are some of you laughing there, right? All right, I will try to get back to this one here in a second. So in summary, right, what would be the demonstration here and the goal of this? The goal of this is to demonstrate that we could have a copy of our database remotely in another computer, right, in another server, and this server could be in Azure. I would be creating that particular virtual machine and replicating to Azure to demonstrate that. One last thing here to point out when you are doing always on for an alternative for backups is the kind of synchronization you guys are going to implement in between the database, between the replicas. Always on supports two kinds of replications, synchronous and asynchronous. And we all know that before SQL Server 2016, the synchronous one was well known by decreasing performance of the live database. So that was one of the reasons also people were looking twice, when work with always on, especially on a very demanding database and a lot of transactions going on. Microsoft fixed that on SQL Server 2016. They did some work on the engine doing the synchronization. But still, when I preparing for this, and if I really don't want to have any performance impact on my production copy while taking continuous backup to continuous replication to the read-only copy, I have done that. My option in some cases has been implemented as asynchronously, because when you do asynchronous, the data will flow right to the replication, to the replica, to the server keeping the replica. And if this server goes down, there is a chance to lose just the current transaction, whatever transaction is going on, and it could have been committed, right? Depending on how precise the catastrophic event was with your database. So it could be like in between a commit that has been placed and that last pages has not been replicated. But in most cases, the amount of data you lose is very minimal, right? In my clients, I haven't seen that happening yet. Losing a transaction that was committed on the production and it was not transferred. But there is a chance for that. The gain for it, right, the payback for it is we don't lose performance on the production database, right, when using always on as an alternative for backups. All right, sorry for the virtual machine that did not pop up. Let me see if it's fresh there. No, it's not fresh there. Oh boy, let me log out here. I hate when the demonstration doesn't work. Let me try this just one more time. I do have two accounts in here, but for some reason, of course, I forgot the password. I thought the password was this one. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the next. Time is running, right? So before I go to this one here, to the Stretch database, let's take a look on our SQL database here, our very large database, and see how it's going over here. So I do have some backups going on. I already have my backups. and I do have data, right? There, I got data there already in my database. Very good. Let me take a look in here. So I got some data in here. So let's go ahead and simulate our catastrophic environment. So one of my disks, let's say here, disk number 4. What is it? It's disk number 4, this guy here. One of my disks is going to crash. Let me double check if I'm in the right disk here. I don't want this to fail. So let me see which folder it is in. It says here it's in drive number 4, and drive number 4 is my file group for the table number 3. So table number 3 will become unavailable on my very large database. So I'm going to head here and detach. So that would simulate a hard drive crash, right? So again, I'm not taking a full backup of my databases because I really don't need, right? I'm taking this case here on-premise, not using Azure. I'm taking it just in portions. So when I go here and start querying, see, one of my drives just went bad. But because I have it in file groups and in separated volumes on my Loom, I can still work on table 1. I still get data from table 1. I still get data from table 2. Let me get here, wrong table here, table 2 and table 2. There we go. Execute. So I still have data from these two guys, but on table 3, I have a failure, right? Because my hard drive went bad, and people start calling, hey, I cannot get data from table 3. And when I look into my script here, I can see that table 3 is on file group 3, right? Which was on drive number 4. So it is time to recover this guy. What do I want to do? Do I have to recover my full 1 exabyte database, or can I go by piece? No, piece by piece. Of course, I can go piece by piece, byte by byte, because I have adopted this practice of taking partial backups. So let me go ahead and stop the logging here. I have to restore my database, so this my backup schedule must stop. Let me go ahead and stop these guys. And I'm going to, in order to restore, I'm going to turn the database. Restore, is it this one here? Let me see. Nope. Restore file groups. And yeah, so I'm going to turn my database offline to get everybody out and get my database back online. And bummer. Yeah, the best practice in here is to get my database back online so I can do a tail backup, right, of my database, because I have the transaction log there, perhaps with some changes that have not been restored. But of course, during a live demonstration, something always goes on. Let me see here if we'll support my tail log backup. So run this guy. Log format, no need. Oh, sorry, nope, not this one. Stop. My tail log is this guy here. So let's go ahead and do the tail log. See if it will allow me to. Of course, insufficient memory disk space. Oh, that was really unexpected. Nope, I do have enough disk. Let's go ahead and do this again. Tail log backup. Execute. Cannot be accessed for insufficient memory or disk space. That is funny. You know, I ran this demonstration 3 times before I came here, and it did not do that. Well, what am I trying to do in here? You see, there is a transaction log in my database, perhaps with changes that have not been backed up yet. So I'm doing the no recovery to the backup log with the no recovery in order to do the tail log backup of the transaction log. It seems that it's not they're not allowing me to go through the thing. So let me go ahead in here and get my restore of the file group. And I will force, I'm gonna lose the tail log, the last changes, but I will force it to restore. So I'm using Management Studio here. Let me do it again, right? I just right-click here on my database that I have just made offline for restoration, and I'm going here into the restore, and I'm not restoring the full database because I'm not taking full backups of the database like I mentioned. I'm going to be taking pieces of my database. And the file group that failed was file group number 3, right? This guy here, file group number 3. So I'm going to tell Management Studio I want to get, oh sorry, not this guy. I want to get this guy here restored. And because it has the memory of my backups, it's telling me I have to restore this chain, right? This whole chain in here. I'm going to ask it just for us to see the script behind this thing here, going to get it into the clipboard and have it here in my restore script. Paste it in here and do my restore. So it will try to do the restoration, right, of this particular data file here and all the logs after it. So where is this file going to be stored? Well, I have a folder here that I have created just for that. Would be like a spare hard drive being restored. I'm going to leave it in here just to keep it simple, but I could have it in that particular folder. So no recovery for everybody, and the last one here with recovery. Database is already offline, so let's go ahead and do our restore. And once again, system cannot find the specified file. Isn't the file there? Drive C, lab, SQL pass demos, and here's my file. So the file is there. SQL pass, VLDB backup. Return an error, the system cannot find the file. Right. So let me go ahead. You know what? Let me go ahead and do this. Look, I think it's looking for the folder on number 4, and it is accessible because the drive is gone, right? So let's go ahead and make that folder available again. Make that, actually it's the hard drive, right? Make the hard drive available again. So let's go ahead and go here to computer management and attach that file back. No, it's a new disk because the old disk failed, so this would be attaching a new disk back to my system where I want to restore the database. Let me go ahead in here and double check that's in there. So that new disk is empty, right? There is nothing there in the new disk because was just created. Yeah, go ahead. Remove it from there. So we just got a brand new disk in there, and let's see if this script goes on. I think it was complaining about the path. I should have done a move in order for the thing to go. What is this? Oh, look at that. It is complaining about the tail log that I was not able to do. Why you're telling me that if you did not allow me to do it? Oh boy, that happens. I think I'm gonna have to perhaps apologize here again because the file is not there. Let me see if I can do just one workaround here. If that works, so don't want my demonstration to bomb. Let me get this guy here just to have what is that? Secondary data file, action can be completed, the file system, the file is open. The file is open, but I cannot do a tail log. How come if the database is offline? It's a shame when this happens. Sorry, guys. We'll make sure for my script here why this thing is not working. Is it offline? Auto database set offline. Perfect. It is offline. So let's do you. Yeah, still complain about the tail log that it would not allow me to do before. Go back in here. I've tried the tail log just once more. Oh, down here. Just once more, and I will give up. Yeah, field cannot be opened because it is offline, but when it's online, it does not support my log. Yep. So that's how it should work. It should work. My time is running out. I still have 2 more things to show you, and I will have to debug my script here to see what happened. Live demonstrations are like that, and I apologize. So yeah. So what's the deal about this stretch database? So 2 options so far, right? We had for very large databases, and Azure is not an option for me for some reason. I may want to do partial backups and partial restores when needed, with the right scripts, because my one failed. Another option is to have copies of my database using always on, so that would could potentially avoid or prevent me from doing backups, right? I don't have to do real backups from that one. This one here is another option you have, but this one is already using Azure. And the idea here is I have this feature in Azure called, with SQL Server 2016 together with Azure, called stretch databases. Now, stretch databases are very interesting because we can specify what is the collection of data on my local database that I want to store up in Azure SQL database. It's important to pinpoint here that we are using, in this particular solution, we are using Azure, oops, let me get the text box here, like this. We are using Azure SQL database in comparison to Azure VM and running SQL Server inside the VM, right? VMs in Azure, they are great. You know, we can do a bunch of things with them, but they are usually more expensive than running platform as a service, right? This guy here is a platform as a service in Azure, and the VM is considered infrastructure as a service. So the good thing about the stretch database is use the platform as a service SQL Server offering from Azure, which means it's not as expensive as running a VM. You see, if I do an always on and I decide to do Azure with the always on, I would have to create a VM, and that will be more expensive than this particular approach. And this particular approach here would also save me a lot of time when working with the backups, because I would not need to, I'm trying to use my pen here, there we go, go to the pen, let me start writing something here. I would not need to back up whatever is in the cloud, because Azure databases up in the cloud, Azure SQL databases up in the cloud, the backup is automated by the platform as a service infrastructure. We don't rule how often these things are backed up. Our subscription level here will guarantee me for how long the backup would be kept at the Azure side, and will also give me the option to restore up to a point in time depending on the subscription level. So if I have a database, let's say my database is 2 terabytes, but I have some cold data that sits in this database that I either connect to them or query from them randomly, or I just don't at all, but I must keep them for compliance, right, for industry compliance. So if I get like 1.5 terabytes of this database up in the cloud, my database in here, when I run local SQL backups, will be just 500 gigabytes, right? 1/4 of the size of the region database. My backup strategy in here will have to account just for this amount, not for the entire 2 terabytes. So I'm saving at least 1/4 of the time and space and tape and local resources to do my backup in here. And in case a catastrophic event happens and this guy goes away, I can get a new instance up, I can restore my half terabyte in here and reconnect the new instance up to the cloud, and then have full access to the
Amanda, we seem to have lost audio.
Hello?
Okay, there you go.
Oh, something happened with the audio? All right, so that's why, right? Why you're taking full backups of this and skip this local when you have this one in here. Some of my clients, they're especially concerned, at the beginning, they're especially concerned about the connection. So this connection here to get from on-premise to Azure, right? Of course, we should always consider using express routes. So express routes is not mandatory, right? We can use the regular company's connection to the internet to get to Azure. But the thing with express route is we'll guarantee bandwidth. And I had that page here, but let me open it again. Azure express route. And let me get in here. So this is the express route. In case you haven't checked this lately, we get here into the express route and go to the price details. Compare this bandwidth here. We can have up to the cloud, actually up to straight to Azure Azure network. So you see, I can have a half terabyte bandwidth to the cloud for I believe is a very reasonable price, right? And if your database is close to your location where you run your platform has a service, you don't need to go premium, because this would be worldwide and this would be to a particular location. So by that price a month to connect to Azure, and of course paying the storage in there, doing the math, we have found, me and my clients, we have found that's very affordable, and most of all, it takes a lot of the responsibilities of keeping this data on-premise and have them securely distributed through multiple locations, because this thing goes into the geo-replication schema, right, in Azure, so it will be safe in multiple locations. I would have a demo for that one here, but I'm running out of time. I have just like 6 minutes or so to finish this one here. The last one I really want to mention to you, and this one here is the one that I was telling to one of my students here in the classroom. People, I don't know why I don't hear people talk much about this. It's a new technology in 2016 called file snapshot. So what's the file snapshot? Well, and it requires Azure. In my first example, where my my file group restore failed for whatever reason, I got to figure that out. I had all of these data files here on premise, and the goal, the point in there was, why are you taking full backup of a big database when you could do it by portions, right, by pieces. Now with the Azure, with the SQL Server 2016 file snapshot backup, what you will be doing is keeping those data files. You see, these data files we have in here, keeping these data files, these hard drives. Oops, I'm trying to use the pen. The pen is not writing. Now it is writing. There we go. So using this hard drives here, instead of being local hard drives, what you'll be doing is you would be having these files on Azure Blob storages. Azure Blob storages. So you would create your data files for your database up in Azure. And of course, express a route is almost mandatory here. It's not really required, but it's almost, in practical terms, it is mandatory. So with Azure, with the connection, a reliable connection and speedy connection to the cloud, you can use the blob storage there in the cloud to have all your files in there. You could still organize them in file groups if you like, but you're not really taking backup of them. What you would be doing is you're going to be using a new backup option in SQL Server 2016 called File Snapshot. You can search for, go to books online and see the syntax for this one here. And when you do, backup database to my database, there, give the database name using File Snapshots. SQL Server talks to Azure, to the blob storage, and the blob storage keeps snapshots of the files, of the actual files in there. I thought I had a picture for that. The picture is not here, but I can have the snapshots in there. I actually took the picture from one of the, this one here. This one and this one. Let me zoom this in a little bit so we can see. So what ended up happening here is, you see, the Azure storage keeps the MDF file, right? The file we have in there, and keep snapshots and accumulating the snapshots as we keep keep doing our backups in the file snapshot style. So the benefit of this, and there is a video here, you can come in here later and check out this video on these pages, and in my slide deck I have these links here for you guys so you can do some research later. See, I got the links there for you. What happens in here is, in order to restore from a snapshot, because everything happens up in the cloud, I have tried, and doing my tests and implementing with my customers, we have restored hundreds of gigabytes. The last one I did was 200 gigabytes. We restored it in a couple minutes. It was really, really, really quick because of the snapshot file placement that happens behind the scenes in Azure. So people look at this and say, "You crazy, Armando? This is my on-premise instance. Are you talking about get the on-premise instance?" Oh, sorry, wrong pen there. Are you talking about get the on-premise instance and have the files up in the cloud? And that's exactly what SQL Server 2016 supports. You can do that from a VM up in Azure, or you can do that on-premise. And again, make sure you have a reliable network connection, right? Using express routers or something that would do the same work and guarantee the bandwidth you need. But the point is, with this approach here, you really don't do the traditional backup we are used to do anymore with full differential and transaction logs. With this one here, you can restore at any point in time, so it's better than always on. You can restore the whole database or portions of it, and everything is stored up in the cloud. So there you have it. My 4 options in there for you, to preventing you from doing full backups all the time on your databases, but using some alternative ways that came along with SQL Server 2014 and SQL Server 2016. And the last one you should really take a look at. It sounds, like I said in the abstract, it sounds scary, but again, it works and is really fun. In terms of cost and benefits, the geo-replication and the backup of the blob storage happening behind the scenes up in the cloud, it's a dream come true. So with that, I turn it back to Sharon. Sharon, are there any questions there for me?
There are some questions, Armando. The first one is, how can we take file backups so that they are consistent between them? Do I take them at the same time?
Up in the cloud or the partial backups
This
on-premise?
is an early question, so I think it was when you were talking about file group backups.
File group backups.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, so as you can see in my script here that it did work before, but of course for live presentation sometimes for whatever reason these things decide not to work. Here, you see, they are parts. They are not doing it, they are not done at the same time. And you do that because either they don't change very often or because you don't have the bandwidth to do them side by side. The bottom line is it's not required to do them all together. I could be doing this one here on Monday, and then this one here on Tuesday, this one here on Wednesday, and I would be doing this one here again only next week. The trick here is, although these guys are done once a week, in this example, the transaction log is continually being done. So when I restore, as you can see here, the script that was generated by Management Studio for me, when I restore just the data file that was missing. This is it, just the data file that was missing, and all the logs after that, the data file, right, or in this case here, the file group I have restored. This strategy works only with full recovery model, right? You got to be on full recovery model to do this. But that's the strategy. You restore the file group you have lost and all the logs after it, so it gets up to speed with the rest of the database. So the answer is I don't have to keep up with the pace. The backup strategy do that for me.
Okay, another question. How can you check if you lost transactions in the mirror if the primary goes down?
How can you check? You do a select statement. I
think the question is, how can I tell if I have to fail over whether I lost any transactions?
Yeah, there is no actually message going out anywhere saying, hey, we have lost a transaction, because the replica, the always-on replica, just lost contact with the primary, and therefore is going to take over. It's going to switch automatically to be the primary if you set it up like that. But it will not tell you, hey, we have lost something because some transactions didn't complete. It's actually, you just lose it, and you check if you have missed any data just by checking the tables. There is no record anywhere in the logs saying that you have lost data and what data you have lost. SQL Server doesn't tell you that.
Okay, one more. In an always-on availability group, we can use the secondary for a full backup, but does the primary log still need to be backed up to keep the log file keep the log file under the limit, keep it from growing?
Good question. For the backup, you don't need the primary log file, and your backup strategy can be any one you need, either simple or full or bulk log.
And I think you can also, back up the log on the secondary, and it will ultimately affect the size of the log on the primary.
Affects the log of the primary.
It will.
When you do always on, you can have your primary in any recovery model. So if you're doing full, you have to do backup from time to time to get rid of the accumulated transactions. But if you do simple, you're good to go. It will not grow up.
Okay, that's all the questions. If you would send me your PowerPoint and your scripts so that I can post them for people.
All right, I'll do that, and I'll also including there a link with the demonstrations working because for some reason my scripts here, they fail me on live presentation. I hate when this happens.
Oh, I know, it's so horrible. My ex-husband, I actually bought him a tie that had bugs on it, insects on it,
nice.
so that he could wear it when he had to do a demonstration to keep the bugs
Yeah.
from getting in.
I need one of that. Send one to me. I'll
I
pay you
don't know
back.
I don't know if they still have it, but if I see one, I'll tell you where to get it. Okay, everybody, thanks for coming. And our next meeting will be in January because we're taking the holiday season off. And thank you,
All right.
Armando, for
Thanks for
your
having
great
me.
presentation.
Appreciate